Good evening, everyone. We begin tonight, keeping them honest, with an investigation into why autistic kids in this country and kids with severe behavioral problems are being shocked with electrodes at a school in the United States. Now, we've been looking into this school for years. It's the only place in the country that electrically shocks students. And now the United Nations point person on torture, yes, torture, is pressing for an investigation. The school is in Massachusetts. It's called the Judge Rodenberg Center, and they claim that electric shocks and other forms of what they call aversive therapies are the only way to control some students who are a danger to themselves or to others. Recently, outrage over the school exploded when the public for the first time saw a video of a student being repeatedly shocked. His name is Andre McCollins, and the video shows Andre being shocked some 31 times over the course of 7 hours. I want to warn you, it is difficult to watch. When McCollins was 18, he's no longer at this center. His mom pulled him out. His family recently settled a lawsuit against the JRC, and the video is part of the trial. Now, those disturbing images also caught the attention of the UN Special Rapporteur, Juan Mendez. Over the weekend, he told the British paper The Guardian, quote, "The use of electricity on anyone's body raises the question of whether this is therapeutic or whether it inflicts pain and suffering tantamount to torture in violation of international law." Mendez is looking for answers from the U.S. Department of Justice, which launched an investigation against this center some 2 years ago. When we asked the Justice Department for an update on the investigation, they told us it's ongoing and they wouldn't comment. The school says that no one else will take their students and that the electric shocks are better than huge amounts of prescription drugs. Now, to be sure, the school has many supporters, parents who swear their kids are alive because of these shocks. But the National Council on Disabilities and many other critics say the electric shocks that JRC uses are contrary to federal policy and at odds with mental health research. What's more, an investigation by New York State officials found that students were being shocked for a wide range of behaviors that weren't by any measure aggressive, destructive, or dangerous. For instance, nagging, swearing, and, quote, failing to maintain a neat appearance. They were shocked for not being neat enough. Recently, a former teacher's aide at the school told us pretty much the same thing.
A kid drinks out of a paper cup and finishes his water, and then he tears the paper cup. You have to shock the student for tearing that paper cup, the same as if they tore something off the wall. There's not necessary. It's being abused. This is torture.
Now remember, these are autistic kids in some cases who can't even communicate, can't express what they're feeling. The Justice Department isn't the only federal agency looking into this center right now. In 2010, the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, withdrew its clearance of the device that the school uses to shock the students. It's called a GED. It looks like this. It's from the device the FDA originally cleared was much less powerful than the one that the school has also now begun to use. They basically created a souped-up version to give some students even stronger shocks. So even though the FDA pulled their clearance, the school still uses it. The FDA says they've been investigating the whole thing, but if they are, it's taking them almost 2 years to take any action. Tom Foreman has been digging on that. He joins me now. What did the FDA actually tell you, Tom?
Well, Anderson, the FDA has been very closed-mouthed about this. They say the same thing, really, that you heard from the Justice Department. This is an ongoing investigation. They say they're not standing by letting horrible things happen, but they just can't talk about this case. They told us at one point that they would consider coming on to talk to us on camera about at least the general principles involved here. We even went up to their campus there on the north side of D.C. to see if they wanted to come out and talk then. We've exchanged notes with them and everything else, but ultimately they backed off of even that, and they simply will not come on and talk about even the general principle of whether or not this is good or bad, even though they admit they are the ones who have to approve these devices. Anderson?
But what reason did they give for not giving an interview?
Well, just that notion that it has to be a private matter, that this is something that's ongoing. They sort of give a little bit of a wink and a nod to the notion of, we are definitely on this, we're definitely moving forward, we just can't tell you about it right now. But as you note, it's really been quite a number of months since the last sign of any action on this. So that begs the question, when, if at any time, will they take action?
I mean, it's been almost 2 years. Is there any sense of a timetable?
No, none at all at this point. Just a sense that they're moving forward with it. They did say at one point, you have to give a company time to make the changes that we request. That's a quote there, which would suggest that they're in some process of saying, you must change this, now change it. The argument being that these people at the center actually manufacture this device, so for them to make all the changes and get them properly cleared, as the official language is, might take a period of time, but there's no sense of how much time we're talking about, whether that'll be 6 more months or 6 more years.
And the school is standing by publicly their use, and they're the only ones that we can find in the country, if not in the world, that actually shock students like this. Tom, thanks.
Very much, Anderson.
One of the most vocal critics of the Judge Rodenberg Center is Massachusetts Senator Brian Joyce. He's tried repeatedly to shut down the center. Recently, the Massachusetts Senate passed a bill that he sponsored banning the use of electric shocks on students. Its fate, though, in the House in Massachusetts is unclear. Now, according to Senator Joyce, the Rodenberg Center has spent millions of dollars over the last decade on lawyers and lobbyists and powerful friends in the state capitol. He also told us that the center has brought students to testify at a past hearing that state lawmakers held, and that the students, some of them were actually wearing their electric shock devices while they testified. Joyce contends that testimony could have been coerced by the fear of being shocked. Now, we asked the Judge Rodenberg Center about those claims. In a statement, they told us, and I quote, "Senator Joyce is once again making false statements when faced with compelling evidence of the efficacy of aversive procedures. The army of people descending on the Massachusetts State House that he refers to are not, quote, lobbyists and lawyers. They are dozens of parents of JRC students who visit the State House to inform the legislators about how aversive therapy saved their child's life when no other treatment would work." Similarly, the statement went on, Senator Joyce is making false statements about the current and former JRC students who courageously testified at hearings conducted by the Massachusetts legislature about their life of pain, anguish, and hopelessness caused by their untreatable behavior disorder, and how the JRC treatment program and aversives saved their life. Senator Brian Joyce joins me now, along with Dr. Lewis Krause, Chief of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry at Rush University Medical Center in Chicago. Senator Joyce, so the center is saying you're making false statements. They're basically saying you're lying about the students who testified and about the large number of lobbyists and lawyers who you say are involved in keeping this center open. Your response?
Well, every single statement that I've made is documented and sourced. The statement that you just read actually came from not the center itself, but a very high-priced public relations firm. The money they spend on lawyers and lobbyists is actually public information. They spent over $2 million in lobbyists and lawyers last year, over $1 million in lobbying, over $15 million in lawyers in the past 10 years. You know, what other school for disabled children is spending tens of millions of dollars on lawyers and lobbyists and public relations specialists to defend what is really the indefensible, barbaric treatment of innocent disabled children?
Dr. Krause, it's always interesting to me when you ask anybody for a statement and they don't really respond directly to some of the direct questions. What they didn't respond to in that statement was whether or not their students were wearing electric shock devices while testifying. When you hear the allegations that some of them were actually wearing these electric devices, does that seem appropriate to you?
I can't fathom the concept of having electrical devices on kids. They already know what the impact is of these electrical devices. They've already apparently been used on these particular kids. Why would they have the electrical devices on them? If it was so effective, you'd think they wouldn't need them. The concept of having them on them almost seems like a torturous process for these kids that is just really unfathomable.
Senator Joyce, the center makes a lot of money. When I first began looking into this, I didn't realize how much money they're making about $52 million every year by one account that I read. Is that taxpayers who are paying for these kids to be shocked?
It is. It's taxpayer money, an awful lot of taxpayer money from the state of New York and several other states. Going back to the statement with respect to wearing the painful electronic device, 2006, the Board of Regents of the state of New York, in their report, gave evidence of students actually wearing these electric, painful devices while they were being showered and bathed. Reports of burning flesh in the hallway, of the smell of burning flesh, of having to have so-called GED holidays, GED being the device, that there was so much burning of the skin that they had to stop it for a while the skin healed.
Dr. Krause, the fact that the UN point person on torture is now pressing for an investigation, I mean, do you describe this as torture? I mean, that's not a word that we have used. Is that a word you would use?
Well, if you look, in 1990, the UN passed the Convention on the Rights of Children, and Article 19 on there talks about torturous, hurtful, painful behavior to children. for us essentially violating an Eighth Amendment right of the child. There's a reason why schools don't use corporal punishment. It's against the law. It's child abuse.
Doctor, I'm no expert, certainly, and I'm sympathetic to the parents that I've talked to who support this center and say, look, my child would be dead if it wasn't for this center. My child had behavior that was so hurtful to themselves that they might have taken their own life, banging their head against the wall until they died. And the school keeps coming back and saying, look, this therapy has saved the lives of children when no other treatment would work. So what do you say to those parents who say, well, look, this may be unusual, this may be the only place that does this, but, you know, shocking these kids seems to work in some cases?
You know, there could be isolated examples of many different types of treatment appearing to work. The problem is not having peer-reviewed research really limits any validity to this. You know, people fall out of airplanes and survive on the rarest of occasions. That doesn't make it safe. This is something that there's a reason why there aren't other programs using this type of aversive treatment.
It is interesting, Senator Joyce, because if somebody proposed, you know, strapping electric devices to prisoners to keep them in line in prisons and shocking them, you know, as often as necessary to control their behavior, there would be a lot of people standing up and say, well, look, you can't do that to people. And yet this is allowed. How is it that this has continued to go on? Because you've been pushing legislation over and over again over the years to ban this practice.
Somehow in 49 other states, and indeed on every other nation on earth, we're able to treat disabled children increasingly with positive behavior treatment. You know, the statement you read earlier suggested I'd not visited the center. Certainly I've visited the center. Suggested I've not spoken with parents. I've spoken with dozens of parents, and I've spoken with dozens of former employees, often who are fearful of speaking with me. But I was with one former parent on Saturday, Cheryl McCollins, whose son, Andre, was the poor boy who was shown in the video recently in court, tortured for over 7 hours while tied to a board with a helmet on. And I think his violation was not taking his jacket off in a timely manner. And I think it turned out it might not even have been his jacket. It's important to note, sometimes these children are not even verbal, can't even communicate. Cheryl McCollins, that mother, said she never, ever, ever would have allowed this to happen to her son had she known, had the center shown her when she dropped her son off what they do to these poor children.
And she settled out of court with the center, but continues to speak out now to try to close it down. We've had her on the program as well. Senator Brian Joyce, appreciate you being on. Dr. Lewis Krauss, thank you.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you.